The sky above Seoul turned purple on a Tuesday morning. Commander Tae-ho was drinking his third cup of coffee when the first alerts screamed across every screen in the military headquarters. Ships were appearing in Earth's orbit, big ships, hundreds of them. They came without warning, without any radio signals, without any chance for humanity to prepare. The alien vessels were massive, each one the size of a small city. They hung in space like dark clouds, blocking out the stars. Within minutes, every telescope on Earth pointed upward. Every satellite tried to get a better look. Every world leader demanded answers. Nobody had any answers. The aliens struck first. Their weapons were unlike anything humans had ever seen, beams of light that simply erased whatever they touched. Missiles that passed through solid walls like ghosts before exploding inside their targets. The defense platforms orbiting Earth opened fire with plasma cannons and quantum torpedoes. The aliens didn't even slow down. Their shields shimmered and adapted, turning every human weapon into harmless light shows. Mars' colony fell in 6 hours. The asteroid mining stations went silent one by one. Europa Base sent one final message before the transmission cut off forever. Earth watched helplessly as 300 years of space exploration vanished in a single day. Tae-ho stood in the war room, his jaw tight as he watched the screens. He was 53 years old with more gray hair than black, and he had spent 30 years in the military. He thought he had seen everything. He was wrong. "Sir, they're broadcasting something," a young officer said, her voice shaking. The message was simple. It came in every human language at once. The aliens called themselves the Velkari. They had conquered 47 star systems. Earth was number 48. Humanity had 1 week to surrender completely or face total destruction. No negotiations, no mercy. Just surrender or die. The Emergency Council met that same night. Presidents, generals, scientists, and leaders from every nation crowded into the underground bunker in Geneva. The mood was dark. Everyone had seen the battle footage. Everyone knew the truth. Earth's weapons couldn't hurt the Velkari. Their shields were too good. Their technology was too advanced. "We need time to develop new weapons," Dr. Hye-jin said. She was a physicist in her 40s. Known for her work on experimental defense systems. Her hands moved quickly as she pulled up holographic displays. "If we can analyze their shield technology, maybe we can find a weakness." "We don't have time," Captain Mina interrupted. She was younger, maybe 30, with fierce eyes and a burned uniform. She had commanded one of the defense fleets. Now she commanded nothing. Her entire fleet was gone. "They gave us 7 days. We need a solution now, not in 6 months. Arguments filled the room. Some wanted to surrender and hope for mercy. Others wanted to fight to the last human. A few suggested running, taking whatever ships remained and fleeing into deep space. Tae-ho listened to all of it, saying nothing. His mind was elsewhere, running through military history, searching for something, anything that might help. Then it hit him. A crazy idea. Probably stupid. Definitely desperate. "We go backward," Tae-ho said quietly. The room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at him. "Explain," the Secretary General demanded. Tae-ho stood up and walked to the holographic display. He pulled up footage of the battles. "Watch their shields. See how they respond to our plasma weapons? The shields predict where the shot will go and adapt before impact. Their sensors read our guidance systems and electronic signatures. They know what we're going to do before we do it." "So?" someone asked. "So we use weapons they can't predict. Weapons with no electronics, no guidance systems, no energy signatures." Tae-ho paused, knowing how insane this would sound. "We raid the museums. We bring back gunpowder weapons, ballistic missiles, chemical explosives. Everything from before we went digital." The room erupted. Half the people started yelling at once. Some called him crazy. Others called him a fool. The Secretary General banged his fist on the table for silence. You want to fight aliens with ancient weapons? Dr. Hae-jin asked, her face showing disbelief. I want to fight aliens with weapons they've never seen before, Tae-ho corrected. Think about it. Their entire civilization is built on advanced technology. Their shields, their sensors, their tactics, everything assumes their enemy will use modern weapons. But a bullet fired from an old rifle? It's just a chunk of metal flying through the air, no electronics, no heat signature, no guidance system to hack. Their computers won't even register it as a threat until it hits them. Captain Mina leaned forward, her eyes narrowing in thought. The old kinetic weapons, physical projectiles moving at high speed. Their phase technology lets them pass through energy barriers, but solid matter... Exactly, Tae-ho said. We can't beat them with better technology. We're centuries behind. But maybe we can beat them with older technology. Technology so primitive that their defenses aren't designed to handle it. The room went quiet again, but this time it was different. People were thinking, calculating, hoping. It's insane, the Secretary General finally said. But he didn't say no. Where would we even find these weapons? Engineer Dong-min spoke up from the back. He was in his 30s, quiet and methodical. He worked at the Solar Defense Museum, maintaining old military equipment that nobody cared about anymore. Until now. Every major city has military museums. Private collectors have thousands of old weapons. The sealed storage facilities from the last century still have ammunition and explosives. If we move fast, we could gather enough equipment to arm a decent force. And if this doesn't work, someone asked, then we're no worse off than we are now. Tae-ho said simply, we're already losing. This is our only chance. The vote was close, but desperation won. The council approved Operation Ironclad. Teams would be sent worldwide to gather every old weapon they could find. Soldiers would train with antique firearms. Engineers would retrofit ships with primitive systems. Humanity would fight the most advanced enemy in the galaxy with technology from their own violent past. As the meeting ended and people rushed to their assignments, Captain Mina approached Tae-ho. I hope you're right about this, she said. So do I, Tae-ho admitted. So do I. Above them, the Velkari fleet waited. 6 days remained until the deadline. The countdown had begun. The orders went out within hours. Military trucks rolled through city streets toward museums that hadn't seen this much activity in decades. In Seoul, a team led by engineer Dong-min broke the seals on storage rooms filled with weapons from the 20th and 21st centuries. The air smelled like old metal and gun oil. Careful with those, Dong-min warned as soldiers lifted crates of ammunition. Some of this stuff is over 300 years old. It's still dangerous. The Seoul Military Museum gave up its entire collection. Rifles from World War II, machine guns from the Korean War, pistols, grenades, and rocket launchers from conflicts most people had only read about in history books. Each weapon was cataloged, tested, and prepared for combat. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. These weapons had been retired because they were obsolete. Now they might save the world. Similar scenes played out across the globe. In London, teams emptied the Imperial War Museum. In Washington, they raided the Smithsonian. In Moscow, Beijing, Tokyo, and Mumbai, old arsenals were opened. Private collectors received official government requests for their antique firearms. Most handed them over without question. The world was ending. Nobody cared about their collections anymore. But gathering weapons was only the first problem. The second problem was bigger. Nobody knew how to use them. Lieutenant Ji-won stood in a firing range, holding an assault rifle from 2035. It felt wrong in her hands. Too heavy, too simple. She was 24 years old and had trained her entire life with plasma weapons that linked directly to her neural implant. Point and think. The gun would fire where she looked. Perfect accuracy every time. This old rifle had iron sights. little metal pieces on top of the barrel. She was supposed to line them up manually and aim without computer assistance. It felt like trying to perform surgery with her eyes closed. "You're thinking too much," Sergeant Hyun-sik said. He was older, nearly 40, and he actually remembered learning about these weapons in basic training decades ago. Most of that training had been historical education, not practical skills. Now he was teaching others, relearning as he went. Just look down the sights. Put the front post in the middle of the back notch. Line it up with your target. Breathe out slowly. Squeeze the trigger. Jiwon tried. The rifle kicked against her shoulder, and the shot went wide. She swore in frustration. "Again," Hyun-sik said patiently. Across the base, similar training was happening everywhere. Pilots who had never flown without AI assistance were climbing into restored aircraft from the 21st century. These planes had manual controls, physical switches, and no neural links. It was like learning to fly all over again. Young Hee, a pilot who had graduated top of her class, nearly crashed an old F-35 fighter jet during her first test flight. The plane didn't respond to her thoughts. She had to actually move the control stick with her hands. It felt impossibly slow and clumsy. But by her fifth flight, muscle memory was starting to kick in. Humans had flown planes like this for 200 years. Her brain could figure it out. Meanwhile, Dr. Hyejin was conducting experiments in her laboratory. She had samples of Valkyrie technology recovered from destroyed scouts. Their shields were sophisticated, using quantum prediction algorithms to anticipate incoming threats. Energy weapons gave off signatures. Guided missiles had electronic components. Even railgun projectiles had electromagnetic traces. The Valkyrie sensors read all of it and adapted within microseconds. But when Hyejin fired a simple lead bullet through their shield using a compressed air gun, the results were fascinating. The shield didn't react. The bullet passed straight through and struck the Valkyrie hull sample, leaving a deep dent. She ran the test again with the same result. The shield simply couldn't detect or stop a purely mechanical projectile with no electronic signature. She called Tae-ho immediately. "It works. Your theory actually works." "Good," Tae-ho replied. He didn't sound surprised, just relieved. "How soon can we field test it?" "There's a Valkyrie patrol ship passing near the moon tomorrow. Long-range scanners picked it up. It's alone." "Perfect. Let me know when you're ready." The test came together quickly. A small outpost on the moon's dark side was evacuated except for 12 volunteers. Sergeant Hyun-sik led the squad. They set up in hidden positions with restored M2 Browning machine guns, weapons that had first seen combat in 1933. The guns were simple, reliable, and completely mechanical. They fired large 50 caliber bullets using gunpowder and springs. No batteries, no computers, just metal and chemistry. The waiting was the hardest part. The squad lay in the lunar dust, watching their scanners. The Valkyrie ship approached slowly, its sensors sweeping the area. It detected the outpost buildings but saw no weapons, no power signatures, no threats. The Valkyrie had learned that humans sometimes hid in abandoned bases, but their scans showed nothing dangerous. The alien ship landed in the center of the outpost. Its shields shimmered in the low light, ready for any attack. Valkyrie soldiers emerged, their armor glowing with defensive fields. "Hold!" Hyun-sik whispered into his radio. His heart pounded. If this didn't work, they were all dead. The Valkyrie scanned the buildings, found them empty, lowered their shields to conserve power, standard procedure when no threats were detected. "Now!" Hyun-sik ordered. 12 machine guns opened fire at once. The sound was deafening even in the thin lunar atmosphere. Heavy bullets tore through the air at over 800 meters per second. The Valkyrie shields, designed to stop energy weapons and detect guided missiles, did nothing. They weren't even activated. By the time the alien sensors realized metal projectiles were incoming, it was too late. Bullets punched through alien armor, shattered their energy packs, tore holes in the ship's hull. The Velkari soldiers fell, their advanced technology useless against something as simple as lead and copper moving fast. The entire fight lasted 11 seconds. Hyun-sik stood up slowly, hardly believing it had worked. His squad emerged from their positions, checking the fallen aliens. They were dead, all of them, killed by weapons their civilization had probably abandoned thousands of years ago. "We actually did it," one soldier whispered. The news spread fast. Video footage of the test reached every military command post on Earth. Hope spread with it. The impossible had happened. Humanity had drawn blood. The Velkari could be hurt. They could be killed. Commander Taeho watched the footage 3 times, studying every detail. Then he pulled up star charts and fleet positions. The Velkari main force was still in orbit, waiting for Earth's surrender. They didn't know about the test. They didn't know humans had found a weakness. Taeho began drafting battle plans. They had 4 days left until the deadline. 4 days to arm as many soldiers as possible with old weapons. 4 days to retrofit ships with kinetic weapons. 4 days to prepare for the biggest gamble in human history. Captain Mina found him working late that night. "They're saying you're a genius," she said. "They said I was crazy yesterday," Taeho replied without looking up from his screens. "Tomorrow they might be right again. We won 1 fight against a patrol ship. The real battle hasn't started yet." "What are our chances?" Taeho was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Better than they were yesterday. That's all I can promise." Mina nodded. She didn't need false hope. She needed a real chance. And now they had one. "I want command of a ship for the counteroffensive," Mina said. Taeho smiled slightly. "I was hoping you'd say that. There's a frigate being fitted with old missile systems, nothing fancy. Just explosive-filled rockets with no guidance. Point and shoot." "Perfect," Mina said. "When do we launch?" 3 days. We're calling it the Battle of the Belt." "I'll be ready." As Mina left, Taeho returned to his plans. The countdown continued. War was coming. But this time, humanity would fight back. The asteroid belt had always been a busy place. Mining operations, shipping routes, and refueling stations turned this region of space into humanity's industrial heartland. Now, it was about to become a battlefield. Captain Mina stood on the bridge of her ship, the Tuguk. The frigate was barely recognizable after the retrofit. Engineers had torn out the plasma cannon arrays and quantum torpedo tubes. In their place were racks of old-style missiles, mechanical railguns, and something that looked insane, metal canisters filled with steel ball bearings meant to be released in the path of enemy ships. Space-age grape shot, one engineer had called it. "How are we looking?" Mina asked her crew. "All systems check out," Lieutenant Jae-sung reported. He was the weapons officer, a young man who had spent the last 3 days learning to operate targeting systems that required manual input. No AI assistance, no predictive firing, just human judgment and timing. "The missiles are dumb as rocks, Captain. We point them in the right direction and hope they hit something." "That's the idea," Mina said. She looked at the tactical display. 20 human ships were positioned throughout the asteroid belt. They were outnumbered 5-1. The Velkari fleet approaching had over 100 vessels. Confident in their superiority, they expected to sweep through the belt and reach Earth by tomorrow. Commander Taeho's voice came through the communications channel from Earth. "All ships, this is command. The enemy fleet will enter the belt in 15 minutes. Remember your training. Fire manually. Trust your instincts. Make every shot count. And most importantly, make them pay for underestimating us." Across the fleet, crews made final preparations. Some prayed. Others checked their weapons one more time. A few wrote final messages to loved ones, just in case. Everyone understood the stakes. This was humanity's stand. Win or lose, the galaxy would remember this day. The Velkari fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. Their ships gleamed with energy shields, and their sensors swept the area. They detected the human ships immediately. Scans showed outdated vessels with primitive weapons. The Velkari commander sent a message demanding immediate surrender. No response came. "Open fire," Mina ordered. The Teguk launched its first missile. It was a simple design from 2067, before guidance systems became standard. The rocket motor ignited, and the missile flew in a straight line toward the nearest Velkari ship. No course corrections, no homing signals, just physics and trajectory. The Velkari shields analyzed the incoming missile, detected the explosive payload, and prepared to detonate it at a safe distance. But the shield's timing was off by microseconds. It was optimized for energy weapons and guided munitions that transmitted electronic signals. This missile gave off only heat from its rocket motor. The shield activated too late. The missile struck the Velkari hull and exploded. The ship's outer armor cracked. Atmosphere vented into space. The Velkari vessel lurched out of formation, damaged but still functional. All around the asteroid belt, similar attacks were playing out. Human ships fired unguided rockets, ballistic projectiles, and even released clouds of metal debris in the paths of enemy vessels. The Velkari shields, so effective against advanced weapons, struggled to track and stop simple kinetic objects moving at high speed. But the humans were still outgunned. Velkari energy weapons tore through human shields in seconds. The destroyer Soul Pride exploded after taking a direct hit. The frigate Mumbai's Hope went silent, its crew dead. Human ships were dying, but they were taking Velkari vessels with them. "Release the grape shot," Mina commanded. The Teguk rotated and ejected 3 canisters from its cargo bay. Each canister contained 10,000 steel ball bearings. Simple magnetic charges pushed the canisters into the path of an approaching Velkari cruiser, then blew them open. The ball bearings spread out in an expanding cloud of metal. The Velkari cruiser flew straight into the cloud at high speed. Its shields tried to track and deflect each individual ball bearing. Impossible. Too many objects. Too random. The bearings hammered into the hull like hail, creating thousands of small impacts. Individually, each bearing did little damage. Together, they shredded the ship's armor, destroyed sensor arrays, and punctured fuel lines. The cruiser tumbled away, crippled. "It's working!" Jae-sung shouted. "Their shields can't handle this much random debris." But the celebration was short. A Velkari battleship targeted the Teguk with its main weapon. Mina saw it coming on her displays. "Evasive maneuvers," she ordered. The frigate turned hard, its engines straining. The energy beam missed by 50 meters, close enough that the sensors screamed warnings. Mina gritted her teeth. They were too slow, too bulky. The Velkari ships were faster and more maneuverable. In a fair fight, humanity would lose. So Mina didn't fight fair. "Take us into the asteroid field, dense section." "Captain, our shields can't handle asteroid impacts at this speed," the navigator warned. "Neither can theirs. Do it." The Teguk dove into a cluster of tumbling rocks. Mina's crew watched their scanners, calling out obstacles. Left, right, up, down. The frigate wove through the asteroids like thread through a needle. Behind them, 3 Velkari ships followed. The first Velkari ship was too confident in its shields. It struck an asteroid at full speed. The shields held for a moment, then overloaded from the kinetic impact. The ship cracked open like an egg. The second Velkari vessel tried to slow down and nearly collided with the third. They broke off pursuit, unwilling to risk the asteroid field. Mina allowed herself a small smile. Tactics beat technology. Sometimes survival was its own victory. The battle raged for 3 hours. Human ships fought with desperation and creativity. One destroyer emptied its entire cargo bay of maintenance equipment into space, creating a maze of floating wrenches and metal plates that confused Velkari sensors. Another ship set off old-fashioned flares that burned with chemical fire, overwhelming alien targeting systems designed for sophisticated weapons. When the Velkari finally retreated, both sides had taken heavy losses. The human fleet was down to 11 ships. The Velkari had lost 30 vessels, a shocking number for a force that rarely took casualties. For the first time in their history of conquest, the Velkari had been hurt badly enough to withdraw from a battle. On Earth, celebrations erupted. News channels showed footage of burning Velkari ships and human vessels limping home. Humanity had fought back and survived. It wasn't a victory, not really, but it wasn't a defeat either. Commander Tae-ho watched the reports with mixed feelings. They had proven the strategy could work, but the cost was high. Thousands of soldiers were dead. Ships that took years to build were destroyed, and the Velkari still had hundreds more vessels in orbit around Earth. A new message arrived from the Velkari High Command. The surrender deadline was extended, 7 more days. But the tone was different now, less commanding, more cautious. The message ended with something unexpected, a question. "How are you doing this?" Tae-ho drafted a simple reply. "We're human. We adapt." Meanwhile, on Mars, another type of battle was beginning. The Velkari had occupied the colony, using it as a forward base. They thought they controlled the planet. They were about to learn that occupying human territory was different from conquering it. In the dark corridors of Mars Colony Alpha, a man named Sung Jin prepared his team for a mission. They carried no plasma rifles or energy weapons. Instead, they held bows, crossbows, knives, and bottles filled with gasoline. They were about to teach the Velkari about guerrilla warfare, human style. Sung Jin looked at his team of 12 fighters. "Remember," he said quietly, "the aliens have sensors that can detect energy signatures and electronic devices, but they can't detect us if we're quiet and use simple weapons. We move like ghosts. We strike without warning. We show them that this is our home." One by one, they slipped into the colony's maintenance tunnels. Above them, Velkari soldiers patrolled the streets, confident in their advanced armor and weapons. They had no idea that ancient human tactics were about to make their technology worthless. The first Velkari patrol disappeared without a sound, steel-tipped arrows from the shadows. By the time their comrades realized something was wrong, Sung Jin's team was already gone, melting back into the tunnels. The message was clear. The war had entered a new phase, and humanity was just getting started. 3 weeks had passed since the Battle of the Belt. The war had changed. The Velkari were no longer the unstoppable force they had been, but humanity was bleeding too. In a military hospital in Tokyo, Lieutenant Ji-won lay in a bed with burns covering half her body. Her F-35 had been shot down over the Pacific during a raid on a Velkari landing site. She survived the crash. Barely. The doctors said she would fly again someday. She wasn't sure she believed them. The war had become a grinding stalemate. The Velkari adapted quickly to human tactics. Their engineers developed kinetic barriers, physical armor plating that could withstand bullet impacts. Their soldiers started carrying ballistic shields. They studied human history, learning about Earth's wars and guerrilla tactics. The aliens were smart. That made them dangerous. But humans adapted too. Engineer Dong Min worked around the clock developing new weapons from old concepts. His latest project was mounted on the moon's surface, a trebuchet the size of a building. Medieval siege technology scaled up to throw explosive barrels at Velkari ships in low orbit. It sounded insane. It worked. Dr. Hyejin had mixed feelings about some of the weapons being proposed. In her laboratory, she argued with a military commander about chemical weapons. "These were banned for good reason," she said, holding up specifications for chlorine gas shells from World War I. "They're horrible, indiscriminate. They violate every treaty we've ever signed." "The Velkari didn't sign any treaties," the commander replied coldly. They're trying to exterminate us. That doesn't mean we should abandon our humanity to fight them, Hye-jin shot back. The argument continued. In the end, the chemical weapons were produced but kept in reserve. Hye-jin made sure of that. Some lines shouldn't be crossed, even in desperate times. The moon had become the war's center. Luna Base was humanity's largest space dock and weapons facility. If it fell, Earth would be vulnerable. The Velkari knew this. They committed their entire regional fleet to capturing it. Commander Tai-ho stood in the base's command center, watching the enemy fleet approach. Over 200 ships. They had brought overwhelming force. He had 70 ships and the base's defenses. The math wasn't good. They're not taking chances this time, Captain Mina said. She stood beside him, her new ship docked at the base. The Taeguk had been destroyed in a skirmish 2 weeks ago. She had survived again, though she was running out of ships to command. Neither are we, Tae-ho replied. He activated the base-wide communication system. All hands, this is Commander Tae-ho. The enemy is coming in force. They want to end this war by taking Luna Base. We're going to show them why that's a mistake. Every weapon we've built, every tactic we've learned, everything we've got, we use it all today. Make them remember this battle for the rest of their lives. The Velkari fleet opened fire from long range. Energy beams scorched Luna Base's shields. Missiles streaked through space. The base's defense systems responded with everything humanity had invented in 3,000 years of warfare. Railguns fired solid steel rods. Missile batteries launched unguided rockets by the hundreds. Laser arrays from the previous generation of weapons mixed with catapults throwing explosive containers. It was chaos. Beautiful, terrible chaos. Captain Mina launched in a restored destroyer called New Hope. Her crew had welded extra armor plates to the hull and loaded the cargo bay with barrels of napalm, an incendiary weapon from the 20th century. The plan was simple and insane. Get close to a Velkari capital ship and dump burning chemicals on it. This is either brilliant or suicide, her weapons officer muttered. Probably both, Mina agreed. The destroyer accelerated toward the enemy fleet. Velkari fighters swarmed around it, firing energy weapons. New Hope's shields buckled under the assault. Sparks flew from damaged systems. Mina gritted her teeth and kept flying. They only needed to get close, just a little closer. Now, she ordered. The cargo bay doors opened. Barrels tumbled out, their seals breaking open. Napalm spread in a cloud of burning gel. A Velkari cruiser flew directly into it. The gel stuck to the hull, burning with chemical fire that their shields couldn't stop. The intense heat damaged sensors and melted armor. The cruiser's crew panicked, their training never having covered burning sticky chemicals. Mina's destroyer turned away, damaged but intact. Behind her, the Velkari cruiser spiraled out of control, fire spreading across its hull. On Luna Base's surface, Sergeant Hyun-sik commanded an artillery battery. The guns were old, from the early 21st century, designed to fire on Earth battlefields. Engineers had modified them for use in vacuum. Now they lobbed explosive shells at Velkari landing craft, trying to reach the base. Load high explosive, fuse for proximity, Hyun-sik ordered. His crew worked smoothly, handling ammunition with hands protected by pressure suits. The guns fired with silent flashes, no sound in vacuum, and seconds later, a landing craft exploded in a ball of fire and debris. But the Velkari kept coming. For every ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. Landing craft touched down on the lunar surface. Velkari soldiers poured out, their armor upgraded with ballistic plating, their weapons designed for close combat. They had learned from Mars. This time, they were ready for human guerrilla tactics. The battle became brutal. Velkari soldiers fought human defenders in the corridors of Luna Base. Energy weapons and ballistic guns fired at point-blank range. Explosions tore through walls. Sections of the base lost atmosphere, forcing both sides to fight in vacuum suits. Sung Jin was there, his team armed with shotguns and improvised explosives. The close-quarters combat was vicious. The Velkari were stronger and had better armor, but humans were stubborn and creative. Sung Jin's team used the base's maintenance tunnels to ambush enemy squads, then disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. "We can't hold them forever," Sung Jin reported to Taeho over the radio, breathing hard. "They're pushing into Section 7. We need reinforcements." "Reinforcements are tied up everywhere," Taeho replied, his voice strained. "Can you seal that section? Trap them inside?" Sung Jin looked at the corridor around him. Bodies from both sides littered the floor. The walls were scorched with weapon fire. "Give me 10 minutes," he said. Working quickly, his team planted explosives at key structural points. When the Velkari soldiers advanced, they triggered the charges. The ceiling collapsed, sealing off the entire section. Dozens of alien soldiers were trapped inside with no way out. But the cost was terrible. 3 of Sung Jin's team didn't make it out before the charges blew. The war was taking everyone, piece by piece. The Battle of Luna Base lasted 3 weeks. 3 weeks of constant fighting, of barely sleeping, of watching friends die. The casualty lists grew longer every day. Whole families on Earth lost their sons and daughters. Memorial services were postponed because there were too many dead and not enough time to mourn them properly. But humanity held. Barely. When the Velkari finally pulled back their fleet, both sides were exhausted. Luna Base was still in human hands, though half of it was destroyed. The Velkari had lost over 100 ships and thousands of soldiers. Their high command was furious. How could primitives be this difficult to conquer? Commander Taeho walked through the ruins of the base, stepping over debris and past makeshift medical stations. His uniform was dirty and torn. He hadn't slept in 40 hours. His eyes were red from smoke and exhaustion. Captain Mina found him staring at a wall that listed the names of the dead. Her name wasn't on it, but many of her friends' names were. "We won," she said quietly. "Did we?" Taeho asked. He gestured at the destruction around them. "Look at what it cost us." "Less than it cost them," Mina replied. "And we're still here. They thought they could sweep through human space in a week. It's been 2 months, and we're still fighting." Taeho nodded slowly. She was right, but he could see the bigger picture. The Velkari Empire was vast. They had billions of soldiers, thousands of ships. Earth had millions of soldiers and fewer than 100 operational ships left. They couldn't win through attrition. Eventually, humanity would run out of people before the Velkari ran out of patience. "We need to end this," Taeho said. "Not just survive battles. We need to win the war." "How?" Mina asked. "We're already throwing everything we have at them." Taeho pulled up intelligence reports on his datapad. They showed the Velkari command mothership in high orbit, the heart of their fleet, the brain of their operation. "We cut off the head," he said. "One decisive strike, something they'll never see coming." "That ship is protected by their entire fleet," Mina said. "It's suicide." "Everything we've done has been suicide," Taeho replied. "That hasn't stopped us yet." He began outlining a plan. The most dangerous plan yet. A plan that would require every ship, every weapon, and every trick humanity had learned. A final desperate gamble. Mina listened, her eyes growing wider. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "When do we launch?" she finally asked. 3 days. I need time to prepare the weapon." "What weapon?" Taeho smiled grimly. "The oldest weapon of all." The weapon being built on the far side of the moon looked like something from ancient history. Engineer Dong Min supervised its construction with a team of exhausted workers. It was a railgun, but not like the modern versions. This was massive, crude, and powered by chemical explosives instead of clean energy systems. The barrel stretched for 2 kilometers across the lunar surface, supported by welded steel frames. "This is insane," one engineer said, looking at the blueprint. We're building a giant gun from spare parts and 19th century theory. That's exactly why it'll work, Dongmin replied. He checked the calculations again. They had one shot, literally. The railgun would probably destroy itself when fired. But if it worked, it would launch a tungsten rod the size of a train car at impossible speeds. No guidance system, no electronics, just mass, velocity, and physics. Dr. Hyejin worked on the mathematical side. Trajectory calculations without computer assistance were difficult, but not impossible. Humans had been doing orbital mechanics with pencil and paper for centuries. She filled notebooks with equations, checking and rechecking every number. One mistake, and the whole plan would fail. The Valkyrie mothership is in stable orbit, she told Tai-Ho. It moves in a predictable pattern. If we time the shot perfectly, we can hit it. If, Tai-Ho repeated. That's a big word. It's the only word we have left, Hyejin said. The plan was simple in concept, impossible in execution. Every remaining human ship would launch a suicidal attack on the Valkyrie fleet, creating a distraction. While the enemy focused on the battle, the railgun would fire at the mothership. The rod had no guidance, no way to correct course. It was purely ballistic. If the calculations were off by even a fraction, it would miss. If the Valkyrie detected it in time, they could move. Everything had to be perfect. Captain Mina stood in the briefing room looking at the faces of the ship commanders who would lead the attack. 73 ships. That was all humanity had left in fighting condition. Most were damaged. All were running on makeshift repairs and hope. These 73 ships had to hold the attention of over 300 Valkyrie vessels long enough for one shot. They'll know it's a distraction, one commander said. They're not stupid. Let them know, Mina replied. We'll make it so loud, so chaotic, that they won't be able to ignore us. We're going to throw everything at them. Every missile, every bullet, every desperate tactic. We make them think this is our final stand. It is our final stand, someone muttered. Mina didn't argue. It was true. The night before the attack, soldiers across the solar system took time to send messages home. Some wrote letters, others recorded videos. Many simply sat quietly, thinking about Earth, about families they might never see again. The weight of what they were about to do pressed down on everyone. Sung Jin found Sergeant Hyun-sik in an observation room, staring at Earth through a window. The blue planet hung in the black sky, beautiful and fragile. You think we're going to win? Sung Jin asked. I think we're going to fight, Hyun-sik replied. That's all that matters. Whether we win or not, the galaxy will remember that humans don't surrender. Ever. Launch time came at dawn, Earth time. The fleet lifted off from Luna Base in waves. Captain Mina commanded the lead ship, a destroyer they had named Last Hope. The name felt appropriate. The human fleet accelerated toward the Valkyrie armada. No sneaking, no clever positioning. They came in straight and fast, weapons already firing. Unguided missiles streaked through space by the hundreds. Railguns hurled metal slugs. Ships released clouds of debris and burning chemicals. It was loud, chaotic, and desperate, exactly as planned. The Valkyrie fleet responded with overwhelming firepower. Energy beams crisscrossed space. Human ships exploded in balls of fire. The destroyer Soul's Light broke apart after taking multiple hits. The frigate Mumbai's Revenge lasted 30 seconds before its reactor went critical. But the humans kept coming, kept firing, kept forcing the Valkyrie to pay attention. On the moon, Dongmin made final adjustments to the railgun. Dr. Hyejin checked her calculations one last time. Commander Tai-Ho stood beside them, watching the battle through telescopes. The timing had to be exact. Too early, and the Valkyrie would have time to react. Too late, and there might be no human ships left to provide distraction. Now, Tai-Ho said quietly. Dongmin activated the firing sequence. Chemical charges ignited along the length of the barrel. Electromagnetic coils powered up, using stored energy from solar panels. The tungsten rod, sitting at the beginning of the barrel, began to accelerate. Faster, faster. The entire structure shook with the force of it. The rod launched with silent power, invisible to human eyes. It was just a piece of metal moving at 50 kilometers per second. No heat signature, no guidance system, no way for the Valkyrie sensors to classify it as a weapon. To their computers, it was just another piece of space debris. Unimportant. The railgun tore itself apart from the stress. Metal twisted and collapsed. Dong Min and his team were already running for shelter as debris fell around them. But the shot was away. Now they could only wait. In space, Captain Mina's ship was taking heavy damage. The shields were gone. Hull breaches vented atmosphere. Half her crew was dead or injured, but she kept fighting, kept firing every weapon that still worked. Around her, the remnants of humanity's fleet fought with the same desperation. Lieutenant Jae Sung, her weapons officer, was bleeding from a head wound but still at his station. "We're out of missiles, Captain. Railgun is damaged. All we have left are the emergency flares." "Fire them anyway," Mina ordered. "Make noise." The flares launched, burning with bright chemical fire. They did no damage, but they lit up the battle like fireworks. More chaos, more distraction. The tungsten rod crossed the distance in seconds. The Valkyrie mothership's shields, designed to stop energy weapons and detect guided threats, never activated. Their sensors never flagged a simple piece of metal as dangerous. By the time proximity alarms started screaming, it was too late. The rod hit the mothership at the center of its mass. The kinetic energy was enormous, more than any explosive could generate. The impact punched completely through the ship, creating a hole from front to back. Secondary explosions rippled through the mothership as power systems overloaded and fuel ignited. The massive vessel, the pride of the Valkyrie fleet, tore itself apart from the inside out. The explosion was visible from Earth. A new star briefly lit up the night sky, then faded. The Valkyrie fleet stopped firing. Across hundreds of ships, alien commanders tried to understand what had just happened. Their mothership, their command center, their regional headquarters, simply gone. Destroyed by a weapon they never saw coming. A weapon their sensors couldn't detect. A weapon so primitive that it shouldn't have been possible. Confusion turned to panic. Without central command, the Valkyrie fleet coordination broke down. Ship captains began making individual decisions. Some continued fighting. Others pulled back. A few started retreating toward the edge of the solar system. The unified killing machine became a confused mob. Captain Mina watched her tactical display, hardly believing what she was seeing. "They're breaking," she whispered. "They're actually breaking." Commander Tae-ho's voice came through the fleet communication channel, tired but triumphant. "All ships, cease fire. Let them go. Let them run home and tell the story." The battle ended not with a final explosion, but with the sight of alien ships fleeing. The Valkyrie fleet, which had arrived with such confidence, retreated in disorder. They left their dead behind. They left their pride behind. They left with a new fear of humanity. The cost was terrible. Of the 73 ships that launched, only 19 survived. Thousands of soldiers were dead. Luna Base was half destroyed. But Earth was safe. The solar system was free. 3 days later, a message arrived from the Valkyrie Empire. Not a demand. Not a threat. A request to negotiate. They wanted to understand how humanity had defeated them. They wanted to know the secret behind primitive weapons destroying advanced technology. Commander Tae-ho drafted the response personally. "You assumed that progress meant always moving forward. We learned that sometimes the old ways work better than the new. You brought energy weapons to a gunpowder fight. You brought advanced tactics to an enemy who remembered every trick from 10,000 years of warfare. You thought we were primitive. You were wrong." The Valkyrie agreed to a peace treaty. They would leave human space. They would never return. In exchange, they asked for one thing: copies of human military history. They wanted to study how a species could turn its own violent past into a strength. Tejo agreed. Let them learn. Let the whole galaxy learn. Memorials were built across Earth and the colonies. Luna Base was rebuilt, and at its center stood a monument made from pieces of the railgun that had saved humanity. Carved into it were the names of everyone who died in the war. Captain Mina attended the dedication ceremony, saluting the names of her fallen crew members. Dr. Hae Jin and engineer Dong Min started a new research program. They called it the Hybrid Initiative, combining old technology and new science to create weapons that couldn't be predicted or countered. Museums became strategic facilities, their collections of ancient weapons now considered vital to defense. New soldiers trained with both modern plasma rifles and old-fashioned firearms. Flight schools taught pilots to fly with both neural interfaces and manual controls. The philosophy was simple: never rely on only one approach. Always have a backup. Always remember the lessons of history. Sergeant Hyun Sik became an instructor, teaching young soldiers about the war. He would hold up an old rifle and say, "This weapon is 300 years old. It's simple, it's reliable, and it helped save the world. Never forget that. Never forget that sometimes the tool your ancestors used is exactly what you need." Commander Tejo retired 6 months after the war ended. He wrote a book about the conflict, titling it Looking Backward to Move Forward. It became required reading in every military academy across human space. In it, he wrote, "We won not because we were more advanced, but because we refused to forget where we came from. Technology advances, but human ingenuity is timeless." Years passed. Earth recovered. New ships were built, incorporating both cutting-edge technology and simple mechanical backups. Humanity expanded into the stars again, but this time with a new reputation. Other alien species heard the story of how humans defeated the Velkari with ancient weapons. Some laughed, some were impressed, all were wary. In military museums across the solar system, old weapons were displayed with new respect. Children visited and stared at antique rifles, at chemical explosives, at simple mechanical devices that had changed history. Plaques explained how each one had been used in the war, how each one had mattered. The galaxy learned a new lesson about humanity. They learned that humans don't just survive, they adapt, they innovate, they weaponize everything, including their own history. They learned that dismissing humans as primitive was a fatal mistake. And humanity learned something too. They learned that progress isn't always about the newest technology. Sometimes survival means remembering the past. Sometimes winning means using every tool available, no matter how old. Sometimes the best answer to an impossible problem is the simplest one. The war became a story told to every generation. The story of how humanity looked backward to save its future. The story of old tech winning a new war.